even though things have improved quite a bit in recent years. But if you take a long look at 50, 60 years of history, the results are not that spectacular. I think the main reason for the failure has been bad ideas, period. Not bad leaders, not poor institutions, not bad infrastructure, not weak human capital, but simply bad ideas. The fact that structurally these low-income economies are different. And my main critique of development economics, at least some of development economics, is that it has not recognized that basic fact. The endowment structures are different. And if we've learned something, I believe, about modern economic growth, is the importance of the endowment structure and the way it evolves over time. And it is still, I believe, dominant in development economics. That the role of the researchers is to find the missing ingredient, what is wrong. So development economists are almost like detectives in mystery novels, like Sherlock Holmes. They show up and they try to identify what's not working. Who is the culprit? What is the missing factor? What is the institutions that need to be fixed? Again, of course, that makes sense in practice, except that as a result, you end up with policy frameworks, which are laundry list of things, which each make sense, but collectively are very difficult to act upon. So the point, obviously, is that every single one of the policy recommendations probably makes sense. But because the attitude has been to look for what's wrong, we end up with things which are unmanageable, especially for countries where, by the way, we say that there are limited capacity. So to me, obviously, the attitude has to change completely. Instead of looking at what is wrong, we should look at what exists and try to see how we can make the most of the existing situation. And I would contend that every single country, poor country, low-income country, has something which can be used today to start a growth strategy that works, while obviously all the other reforms are being implemented. We really need to stay away from the idea that you can just do this long list of reforms and then you can pray and foreign investment will come. All the reforms in the Washington Consensus frameworks are in principle okay, but they will not necessarily solve the coordination and externality issues which you need to solve. Only a state playing its role as a facilitating state could do that. Okay? So I think the challenge for development economics is to actually come up with good ideas which are customized for each country, because obviously circumstances are different in different countries. I think that's the challenge to all of us. The strategy, at least in the beginning, has to stick very carefully to the endowment structure. So in a country like Ghana, and in most African countries, the strategy has to be labor intensive, primarily. Of course, if you have a lot of natural resources, mining, oil, gold, diamonds, gas, it's a wonderful bonus. But that brings you foreign exchange, that brings you fiscal revenues, but that usually do not create a lot of jobs. So the challenge is obviously to convert the rents from these natural resources into a fund, into a strategy that helps you put your people to work. Now, it also means that we need to be true to the most important principle of economics, which is to devote our resources to the industries the sectors where you can expect the highest return. This is perhaps the most controversial statement that I'm making, because whenever you say something like this, people jump to the roof and they say, wow, he's talking about industrial policy. First, let's go back to the definition of industrial policy. Industrial policy is actually simply any government policy which is directed at affecting the structure of the economy, the shape of the economy. That's industrial policy. So everything that every government does every day is industrial policy, whether we accept it or not. One instrument which I found crucial in the history of successful countries, and which is not often debated and studied, it's the use of clusters and industrial parks. Specific geographical areas where you start something, where you solve all the infrastructure problem, all the corruption problem, all the institutional problem, problems that you cannot solve nationwide at once, you can solve them at these places and ignite something. Obviously, this has to be done making sure that there's strong connection to the local economy, something that we haven't done. An industrial park, which is basically a specialized special economic zone, focuses on one industry. And then the government is more likely to be able to offer the particular infrastructure that everybody needs. Now, this means that you need to be careful in selecting that industry. Learning. How do you promote learning? Not only within firms. Some firms, mainly in the formal sectors, tend to do it more or less well. Training their workers, providing opportunities for their workers. But I think the challenge for development economists is to come up with ideas, concrete ideas as to how you promote learnings across firms, across industries, within the economy. Perhaps we should be thinking a little more about the incentives for poor country governments to develop the capacity that they need in economic policy. Because there are actually a few areas of public policies where all these poor countries have excellent capacity. So I really hope that by keeping the work that we are all doing and that you guys are all doing, but by simply being a little more ambitious and aggressive and freeing ourselves a little more from some of the mental models of the past, we'll be doing great things. And I thank you again for the opportunity to talk here. Thank you.